Alrighty, folks. I hope you're having a good weekend. Thanks for joining us here on this wonderful Saturday. I don't know where you're located, but here it is a hot and sticky summer Saturday. Starting to get really muggy, so it's nice to get the warmer weather, but my god, like, I hope the humidity breaks a little bit. Alrighty. So I've got our commentary team here today. I am going to get our runners queued up, so I will go ahead and I will let you folks introduce yourselves.
I think we're both patiently waiting to introduce ourselves, but for tonight, I'm Diane Gito. I'll be doing a bit of commentary together with my partner. I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, so if you would introduce yourself, that would make a lot more sense.
I get that up. Hey guys, I'm Ajma. I am also a, newish, I want to say, runner to the game. And I'm really looking forward to, gleaming some strategies from this race, as we have currently the number 3 and the number 6 leaderboards racing tonight. So this is going to be one exciting race, I want to say. Like, one death can definitely change the outcome here really quickly.
Yeah, even though they're quite even, I think they're quite evenly matched. Oh, it's already starting. But yeah, basically, what we already saw earlier is 2C already had a bit of an upset, but he, of course, has been derusting as far as I know. So it can definitely change at any second. But of course, we're up in Chapter 0 currently. As I call it, you learn how to jump, you learn how to slash, and how to use buttons. Very exciting.
This will, however, change really quickly over the course of the run. Like, the game is really lulling you into a false sense of safety here in the tutorial and later on in the first chapter, which we are now going to enter the geothermal towers, sorry. And, it's basically, giving the runners a little bit of a breathing room to get acclimated themselves with the controls and everything again before, the game will probably start kicking their arse at about chapter 4 at the latest, I want to say.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this quite a lot. I think there's like 4 geared shifts in the current game where it kicks up in chapter 2, 4, after you get the dash, so basically at the end of 5, and as soon as you enter chapter 8, and then you get into the end game later. But yeah, we see... sorry? Yeah, current...
go ahead.
Yeah, there's a small time difference between our current runners. At the first chapter, you see a lot of different types of movement, mostly the same, but both runners try to get this, what's it's called, a ledge boost, where you just jump off at the right, at the end part of a ledge, just to push yourself a little bit more forward. It's only useful really for the earlier chapters, and you can definitely see that by the white dust trail they're leaving behind.
TwoCplus actually doing a little bit of a mistake, if I call it correctly, by probably dropping down a platform instead of jumping up. However, as it seems like he really quickly caught up again to SpaceNarc here, so it's going to be exciting to see if that will be something that we will see happening over and over on this race, like one of the runners, being just a little bit behind but immediately catching up again, because so far they are basically evenly matched here. Like, they are exactly on the same platform at the moment, which is pretty exciting to see.
Well, when you're this close against your opponent, mental nerves are definitely going to kick in. Like, small mistakes like that can already put you at a mental disadvantage in a race like this. I mean, even things like on the current boss, like missing a slash or not executing it the way you want it to, can, build up over time. And we'll basically see how it unfolds in the current race. As 2C is basically making a show of it, jumping a bit left and right. He's happy.
Yeah, they are basically, evenly matched right now. Now, TwoCplus is a little bit ahead. I think he got to jump up the platforms a little bit earlier than SpaceNarc. So, they are neck on neck here. So, like we said before, one single death can drastically change the outcome of this race. So, let's hope we actually don't see one of either of them. Because, if this is exactly what we're going to see for the rest of this race, this would be really hype.
Well, I already saw a few changes in their behavior. They're already trying to make it a little bit safer for themselves by skipping a ledge boost on the first possible enemy. 2C just, had a small mistake already again, which is unfortunate, but it happens, It's what the game dictates. But you can see runners definitely trying to go for a safer strat instead of a faster strat, just to know, to get the first few chapters out of the way, feel more comfortable playing, and then get right back into the action.
Yeah, it's definitely a smarter choice in a race if you go for, something of a little bit more of a safety cushion during some of your strategies here, because let's face it, some of the strategies that we would perform in a PB attempt are pretty risky from time to time. So it's definitely a smart choice to go for something that may be a little bit slower, but not as risky, so you can actually get through it, no problem. As now both runners are getting into the first boss of the game. Or, well, maybe the second one, the end boss of Chapter 1, let's say that.
Yeah, it's a recurring boss that somehow likes to be in a way. Let's just call it a story boss, only strong in stories. But so far, it's been really going back and forth between the two. Like, small mistakes on either side really switches them up, which makes them sync up again. Like, for instance, 2C getting the apparator down before he actually is fully up is, of course, a very huge speed boost to have. Because usually, most runners try to clip his toenails if we don't get the cycle up quickly. But yeah, it's been fast so far, so we're down to Chapter 2.
Now, Chapter 2 is one of the chapters that can just really, bash your brains in a little bit, because there are a lot of pitfalls that can instantly kill you if you don't get certain cycles, like over these trash compactors. So death can really, come quickly in this chapter, and it's only the second one of the game. However, something that I find really interesting to note is actually, you touched upon that a little bit earlier, the way like this route works, right? Like the directions you're going. If you take a look at it, like in Chapter 1, it's all just like movement to the right and a little bit up. Whereas in Chapter 2, some down movement comes into play. Then in Chapter 3, you start going a little bit to the left, and starting from Chapter 4 onwards, it's just like all over the place with switches you have to hit and barriers you have to open and whatnot. So it really keeps you on your toes, just going down on the right. And of course, rust flies. Who doesn't like some flying enemies in a game like this, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. Especially when they're, trying to mess up your pattern, flying around, and if you do not pay attention to them, they will come and snipe you down from below, and that is going to be quite a
and we
experience.
have our first death, 2C not making the jump, getting back to the checkpoint. Heartbreaking to see.
Yeah, that's he just fell right in front of it. It happens. Sometimes you mistime a jump. Sometimes you just barely have those things that just, it's timing based. It's cycle based. If you miss one, you can get quickly done. And of course, SpaceNarc already getting to the mini boss, as I call it, from Chapter 2, the mid boss.
Laser brain.
The laser brain. What you're trying to do is basically hit him as fast as you can, because if you do that, he just stops and he becomes a lazy brain instead. And the best way to do that is by hitting his weak point, which is basically the only boss that has that, which is the middle of his eye, and make quick work of him as long as you get those both crits in. Both runners seem to be doing just that. Unfortunately, 2C just getting crunched on by one of those trash compactors.
Oh,
so that's a bit unfortunate.
Already 2 does.
Yeah, so SpaceNarc already on the elevator. Nobody has died here due to rust flies or spikes or anything that just push you into the spikes. So our runners should know exactly where those flies are. Most runners have individual pattern to deal with this room specifically, and basically it's just to make sure that they're getting safe to the top, because sometimes, like we mentioned earlier, you have these balls hanging up in the air, in the sky, those eggs on 2C sides. If you hit them, they spawn rust flies, and if you do not pay attention to them, they will come down from below, and that's not the thing you want to have, because then they're out of sight and you have no idea when they're coming up next.
Quickly going back to Laserbrain for just one moment here. Before the fight, you actually saw our runners pick up the blade extension, sub-weapon, for lack of a better term, which makes it so that their sword strings reach just a little bit further, which actually allows us to hit the weak point on Laserbrain just a little bit easier. So you can actually get this one cycle before, the trash box to the left and right gets destroyed. And so you can do that fight a little bit, well, quicker, and also get through these upcoming sections a little bit easier.
Yeah, sometimes having that little bit of exactly that blade extend can just make it so that you can hit trash boxes earlier, make your jumps safer, get through this trash elevator cycle faster. Unfortunately, SpaceNarc got hit a few times, so he has to wait a bit on the cycle. Let's see how it goes on 2C side.
Yeah, this could be an opportunity for 2C to make good on a little bit of time, however. With this cycle-based room at the end, where you have to jump up this building trash tower on the left and right, there is not a lot of time you can actually save here. It's more that you can lose time if you do not get the cycle. And
yeah,
to see, I think he was a little bit late on that. He had to destroy a few more trash things, but shouldn't be too late.
Yeah, that's the thing that Chapter 2 and 3 are very known about. As soon as you enter a room, the entire length of the room has a global room timer, and you're trying to beat that out. But skipping the global room timer, we have this Scrambler boss. That's the final boss of Chapter 2. And he's just basically scripted. You run to him, you slash him, you dodge his fire, you dodge his flaming balls of fury, and at the end of that, he just tries a quick desperate attack. He jumps out of his mech, tries to still get rid of you, but it's scripted. We know what he's going to do. We can just freely hit him, and if you still have the blade extend up to this point, you can even get a few extra slices in just to get through Scrambler a bit quicker. And with that, our runners are actually already in Chapter 3.
They are definitely pulling no punches here. Like, I think 2C is starting to caught up a little bit. So I think he isn't as far behind as he was in Chapter 2 anymore. So let's see how long it will actually take him to catch up to SpaceNarc here. But yeah, Chapter 3 is definitely another step up from Chapter 2, as our runners will now try to do some ledge grabs, as you just saw SpaceNarc doing there at the end of this subway train, where at a specific frame you basically try to jump and catch the platform at the very first possible instance to get up to that platform instead of having to go all the way around, which saves about, I don't know, 4 seconds maybe?
Yeah, if you can skip going up and around, it can save you quite a bit of seconds. The way it works is basically you abuse the coyote time the game has. Usually you just fall off a platform and can't jump, but somehow the game thinks, by just doing a quick turnaround, the game thinks, oh, you were on the platform? Let's put you back on the platform. And this only works currently because it's on 60 Hz. So if you have your screen and your game playing on 60 Hz, it's possible. And the trade-off for that, for having a higher hertz, is that you can slash faster.
I actually saw 2C+ fail one of those, so that is another little bit of time that he just lost, compared to SpaceNarc, who got all of the ledge grabs as far as I could tell. So another little bit of a difference here. So I guess the mind games are certainly starting to wreak havoc on 2C a little bit here.
Yeah, he had 2 deaths earlier, a few minor mistakes. That's definitely coming into play. As you can see, he's piling it a little bit up already, which is quite unfortunate. But knowing 2C, he has mindset. It's like, okay, you know what? It happened. Let's get over it. Let's keep on running. Let's get this going. And I think
that is basically the name of the game here. Like, you know, even though SpaceNarc might be ahead by a little bit right now, that basically doesn't mean anything, because if SpaceNarc would just to take a death or anything else unlucky that could happen, 2C+ could easily take the lead again.
Yeah, that's what Cyber Shadow is all about at top level. Running a single mistake can easily switch sides quickly. And so far, yeah, SpaceNarc is making quick work of the Hunter tank, which 2C is coming up right now. And the thing we're trying to learn here in Chapter 3, what the game is teaching us, is also SP management. If you have extra SP, you can use a shuriken to grab a few lanterns that contain guaranteed money, which is of course useful if you want to purchase a sub-weapon later on in the game, and of course for the boss of Chapter 3 itself. 2C also making great work of the Hunter tank. So yeah, that's basically what you try to do with the Hunter tank is it has 3 turrets, it has a giant turret, you slash the head off, it exposes its main weakness, voila, you get through it quite quickly. But if you're not paying attention to the last bullets the turrets send, they can still snipe you on the way there, and I've definitely never died to that or anything.
Yeah, it's luckily heartbreaking if you kill the boss and, you know, one of these stray projectiles just bites you in the ass and kills you afterwards. But yeah, it definitely can happen. But since you touched upon it, resource management is actually something that also comes into play during this run, as we will have to manage our SP levels, which is the blue bar in the upper left. It's basically your mana points, I want to say. You use it to activate your abilities. And, you know, we acquire a few abilities over the course of the run, and depending on if you have SP or not, they actually change their behavior slightly. Like, for example, at the end of Chapter 2 we get the Rising Fire ability, which allows us to shoot 3 fireballs in a, well, fanned pattern upwards. And if we do have SP, of course we will shoot the fireballs. If we don't have any SP, we actually won't shoot these fireballs. And there are other abilities like the airstrike which we get after the fight against Biohunter right here that we can still perform without SP, but if we would have SP while doing it, we would actually get another, well, more empowered strike with a little bit of an explosion radius to kill enemies with.
So what you're saying is basically you have an upgraded version of your ability if you have SP.
Basically, yeah, that sounds about right.
That's really neat to have. It comes into play on multiple times in the game. You nicely explained how it works. It changes your strategy at some points. You can open the capsule, which SpaceNarc did faster if you, of course, deal more damage to the capsule itself. Instead of slicing it 3 times, you can just use a Rising Fire and open the capsule instantly, which saves, of course, a bit of seconds if you have SP left. Both runners actually making great work of Biohunter. So we purchased the second sub-weapon here, which is, knives on a piece of string, which is really useful. It's a yo-yo. It's called a swag blade. And we basically manipulated in the boss to hit him during the first cycle. After we beat the boss, you just saw SpaceNarc do it. We bring it so we can detonate the bomb earlier, which is up in the current room before the monkey shrine. And we usually don't see it anymore in these types of runs. It's just quite unfortunate, but then again, if we can save time, we're gonna do it.
The downside to the swag blade being, even though we can use it to detonate the dynamites so we can get out of the cave after this climbing session faster, is of course you have to bring the swag blade into the climbing section, as you can see on SpaceNarc's side right here. And the swag blade definitely can get in your way while you're trying to climb this tower, because it can just go ahead and destroy some of the lanterns and boxes that we actually use to go a little bit faster than the game actually intends us to. So you actually have to try and manage where your swag blade goes while you are climbing.
Yeah, and if you have this yo-yo flying around with knives, it's not really that easy. So the only point where our players are capable of managing where to get rid of it is basically by slashing it away, so it moves away just a small bit, so you can get a quick lantern in or quickly jump on a box.
Yeah, I think both of them had a pretty good climb. I think 2C actually destroyed one of the boxes a little bit too early, so he had to go a little bit around if I saw it correctly. But as we alluded to earlier, we are now on to Chapter 4 already. And this is where the run basically takes off all the training wheels and just starts throwing everything it can at you to try and hinder your progress. Like, we will have many insta-death traps from here on out. We will have lots of enemies who actually start to deal more damage to you now. Like, most of the attacks that you have to come across will now deal 2 damage to Shadow. So death is readily imminent, like everywhere.
Yeah, SpaceNarc having a bit of trouble trying to activate those switches on both sides as quickly as possible. That's going to give 2C a bit of time to catch up, as he already gets the first switch down quite fast. Still has the swag blade. It's going to give him a bit of an advantage. As long as he gets this switch, ooh, unfortunately, just misses it. It's a tough one. That's why most players actually opt to take the left switch first.
To quickly come back to the sub-weapons, you saw that SpaceNarc actually does not have the swag blade anymore, whereas 2C does have it. And if you look to the upper left corner of the screen, you can actually see the swag blade symbol. And to the left of it, there are, well, now 2 yellow icons, which tells you that the swag blade can withhold 2 more enemy hits until it gets destroyed. And, well, then you wouldn't have it anymore. So if 2C gets hit 2 more times, the swag blade is gone. And, well, basically you won't have it anymore. Simple as that. Which actually will be pretty important at the end of this chapter, as there are 2 sub-weapons that we want to bring into chapter 5 to save quite a bit of time. So that's gonna be exciting when we get there.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Yeah, SpaceNarc already did the cyber dive room. We basically just hit the switch. We abused the broken security there. They never kind of patched it, so usually what you do is you see 2C currently. He goes up. There's the exit button on the left, and you're supposed to hit this exit button, but apparently just triggering the right button also works. It opens the door for us, so we do just that.
Yeah, it's a little bit abusing the programming of that room. It doesn't work in the other cyber rooms that will come later in the game, but it's just a nice little time save to get at this point in the run for sure. Also, it's actually a nice strategy that if you still have the swag blade at this point in time, you can just use that to destroy all these exit portals or whatever the hell you want to call them. Because otherwise you would have to throw a shuriken at a very specific spot to actually not hit the enemy and hit the trigger instead. So it's nice to not have to worry about that.
Yeah, and it also saves you a bit of SP, so you have more chances to use Rising Fire, or the airstrike we got, which is basically a giant pogo stick we got after defeating the Biohunter, which you see our runners making full use of as they try to traverse these rooms in these chapters. And the point SpaceNarc is coming up right now is a bit of an infamous room, because you have this giant squid and the 2 squid enemies here, and they spawn randomly, either to the left, middle, or right. You have this snake head, it just blocks your way, or it doesn't. And you have no idea where they're going to end up. So you have to be prepared for a multitude of situations and how you deal with them, and how you are planning to get through it.
Yeah, this is really the point where the experience of the runners comes into play, so they can actually prepare for all these different situations and make the appropriate counterplay to still be allowed to go fast and not have to think about what they have to do at this point. While SpaceNarc... no, not exactly yet. I thought we would be coming to Mecha Dragon right now, but that is still one room away, so...
He is in the Mecha Dragon room, basically. He's just before the checkpoint. He's using this zip airdrop. Basically, grab a lantern, head the checkpoint, and he's on his way to Mecha Dragon. And Mecha Dragon is the most infamous boss in this entire game, since we can't cycle him. We have no idea where he ends up. We have no idea what the platforms are going to do. The only thing we know for sure is he's going to end up left or right. Toss a coin, who knows? But the best way to deal with this boss is to get a 2 cycle, but it's really, really tough. So mostly we see 3 to 4 cycles from our runners.
Yeah, Mecha Dragon is for sure a very RNG heavy spot in the run, because not only have you to deal with him and his attacks, you also have to manage all these platforms that come up from the top there that you have to slash down so you can actually move on top of them when they hit the water. And you just have to manage a lot of things during this fight, because you also need to manage your SP, so you can actually use the Rising Fire ability to actually, easily deal damage to Mecha Dragon when he surfaces, so you can hit his weak spot in his mouth.
It's really interesting to see Mecha Dragon eat a little bit of damage on SpaceNarc's side, while 2C getting it all. 2C's just on the second cycle, and he's already so close to getting a 2 cycle. And Mecha Dragon here is proving just to be, the regular equalizer that can happen. You can use the sub weapon to deal damage to Mecha Dragon, like 4 or 5 damage really quickly. And as you can see, 2C is definitely, by getting a quicker cycle on Mecha Dragon, catching up to SpaceNarc faster. And the thing is, we are entering this yeah, this Final Fantasy Crystal Room, and people have been calling it the Warriors of Light. There's a little bit of interesting information. You can see where the ninjas are going to spawn at the top lanterns by checking their trajectory. But also the crystal itself has a limited amount of HP, and every time the crystal spawns ninjas, it's going to cost it's paying it forward with its own HP. So dealing damage to the crystal as quick as possible will allow you to get through the crystal warrior room as fast as you can.
Yeah, not only was there one Biohunter between SpaceNarc and 2C, now there was also one Mecha Dragon and one Final Fantasy Crystal between the two of them. So let's see if this keeps up, as both of them are now on their way out of the room of Mecha Dragon. And it's going to be interesting to see which sub-weapon they will actually decide to bring into Chapter 5.
You mentioned it a little bit earlier. You basically have the option of 2 sub-weapons. Would you care to explain why runners opt to go for one or the other?
Sure. So, as you, well, maybe go back a little bit here. As you saw them, you can actually go ahead and buy different sub-weapons at different save points. Now, each save point will have one sub-weapon that you can choose to buy. And the sub-weapons you get in Chapter 4 are the Charge Blaster, which we saw our runners use against Mecha Dragon, and the E-Field, which SpaceNarc just bought before the next boss coming up. And what they will try to do is they want to take either the Charge Blaster or the E-Field into Chapter 5 at a very specific point, as you will not be able to get either the Charge Blaster or the E-Field during Chapter 5. And that is, they weren't programmed in a, well, correct way, I want to say. Because if we have them, we can actually hit a switch through a wall earlier, which will then allow us to basically circumvent a whole area of the game, saving us about, I want to say, 30-ish seconds or so. So that is actually a massive time save if our runners will manage to bring the E-Field, as they have both opted to do now, into that part of Chapter 5. So good luck on both of them, whereas 2C actually got hit during the boss fight and is also already one hit down on the E-Field, so that will actually take part in that upcoming section of the run.
Yeah, the thing you're trying to do is you want to try to get through these chapters as damageless as possible. We already explained a little bit about the HP of the sub-weapon, but yeah, it's going to be a dangerous, tricky journey because you have sometimes these spider enemies and these purple demons, as I call them. They fly around and their AI is programmed in such a way, as you can see on SpaceNarc sites just now, they're programmed in such a way that they're usually avoiding you, but there's like a one in, I don't know, many chances that he just decides to fly into you. And usually you're not well equipped or prepared for that because he just randomly decides to do so. And that is going to cost that one bit of HP on the E-Field that SpaceNarc has currently.
Now, the choice you make between the Charge Blaster or the E-Field is basically, do you want to go more offensive or more defensive through this chapter? As the Charge Blaster basically, the other way around. The E-Field has this shield that it puts in front of you, which will actually block incoming projectiles. And so you have a little more of a defensive option while going through here. And 2C, sadly, he actually lost the shield already, so he won't be getting any of these both skips coming up, which will put him even a little bit further behind SpaceNarc, who still holds on to the E-Shield now, coming up to, well, the point where we actually use that in just a second.
You cursed it.
Getting a little bit...
You cursed it.
I did.
I'm blaming you for this.
I totally did, didn't I? I think something similar happened last weekend as well when I was commentating, so maybe I shouldn't talk about stuff like that anymore.
Commentators curses all around. It always happens.
Well, you know, at least the run, or the race rather, will be evenly matched now. As SpaceNarc took his first death, and basically both of them are now in the same room again, so, you know, this race is hype.
It's definitely that. It's this one single death that just puts them that behind. They both missed the first skip, so they have no option. But I'm curious how they're going to see how they deal with Alpha 1, for example, because usually most runners are already prepared to have like a shield or a blaster to deal just this extra bit of damage. So it's interesting. Are they going to use their SP to buy the SP dispenser to still get rid of a faster Alpha 1. I know 2C has a method of dealing with Alpha 1 without buying the SP dispenser. So he can get a right side kill without any tools, which is really impressive in my opinion.
I mean, at least without the E-field, the fight against Alpha 1 will at least be a little bit more consistent as you actually want to go ahead and, parry a lot of his projectiles coming at you, which is actually easy if you do not have the E-field anymore because it would otherwise block the projectiles. You would have to get rid of the shield at, certain intervals, at certain timings. So you would actually be able to get that strategy.
There's also another way that I've been trying to work out, which is basically having your back turned towards the projectile and still trying to get the parry in. But that's something that's for another day.
Is that even possible?
I think it was. I've been trying it. I know that you can have your back. If you have your back turned, you can definitely still parry the projectile.
Well, put that into the I didn't know that bin, I guess.
No, I didn't know that either. I've been trying.
But yeah, we are now in the Alpha 1 fight with SpaceNarc here, and 2C is about just to come into the room as well. And I think let's actually talk about the abilities that we got. So at the end of Chapter 4, we got the parry ability, which allows us to, well, as the name implies, parry projectiles. And you do that by waiting until a projectile is just about to hit you and then pressing in the direction that the projectile is coming from. So there is a bit of a risk-reward going on here, as you have to put yourself in the line of danger to be able to parry these projectiles back. However, on the flip side, if you do manage to get the parry, you deal a lot of damage with the, projectile that you send back at the enemy. So that is what allows us to kill Alpha 1 like really, really fast.
It also comes into play where in the fight against Alpha 2. A little bit of a spoiler alert. But versus Alpha 2, you basically have to parry him if you want to kill him as fast as possible. Because it deals extra bit of damage. We've got, after Mecha Dragon, we've got the attack upgrade, which allows us to deal 2 damage. But if you parry an attack, you deal more damage doing so. As we see SpaceNarc just intentionally waiting a little bit after the parry, just to get the distances so his sword will not reach the eye to deal 2 damage. The parry attack will hit the eye and deal 3 damage.
By the way, one thing of note, if you do manage to parry a projectile, it won't immediately fire back at the enemy. It will instead convert into these blue orbs that you saw on the screen for just a moment there. And if you then hit those with your sword, that will send the projectile back at the enemy.
And an interesting bit of note as well is that the strength of the projectile depends how large the orb is going to be. So if you have a really large orb, it is going to deal a lot of damage, which you could see in the Alpha 1 fight earlier, where you can, of course, get those really big orbs that deal a lot of damage back to Alpha. But our runners are actually getting our last and final upgrade of today, which is the dash. And this is basically the third gear I've been talking about earlier. This is where you get introduced to all your abilities, and the game just throws stuff at you. You're going to learn how to use the dash, and it wants you to use the dash correctly and quickly as possible.
Yeah, as Turkey would probably say, this is basically the start of the second half of the game here. The first half is without the dash, and the second half is with the dash. As well, as the name implies, the dash allows us to go blazingly fast through the rest of the game, as it also heavily depends on your SP management from now on. So if you see our runs without any SP at any given moment, they will be in trouble.
Yeah, especially SP management becomes a thing, because if you kill an enemy with your dash ability, you get your SP back. So as long as you have enemies, you can chain your SP infinitely. But if you miss a dash or you mismanage your SP, you have less distance, you will not get your SP back, you are in trouble.
And you will, of course, go really, really slow, which is not fast, and this is a speedrun race, so, you want to go fast, man.
It's all about the speed and all about the juice in the end. But yeah, in Chapter 6, we now are introduced to something new, which is alarms, basically. These are these red tripwire laser things, and they spawn an object that has a variety of names, which I would certainly say I'm going to go with screw attack for this one. But
Yeah,
that thing
most
is
of those
lethal.
names are not PG-13 at all, because this thing definitely kills most, well, players of this game, period. I don't think there's any other enemy who has killed as many players as that one. I think some people actually started to call it the Angry Sun from Super Mario Bros. 3, but yeah, there definitely is a variety of names for that thing.
Yeah, it deals so much damage if you get hit by it. It's unreal. But the other thing I wanted to touch on is if you trigger those lasers, not only do you spawn the Angry Mario Sun, you also spawn a lot of enemies, bombs or turrets. And the thing is, sometimes they can actually be really useful. So some runners intentionally trigger the alarm just to get the SP management back by hitting all those enemies, chaining through them, and zoom through a room. And they're already at the tunnel cleaner, so that's basically chapter 6 after this boss.
The tunnel cleaner is a fight that follows a very strict script, if you want to put it that way. As if you do the same attacks, basically, and hit its weak points with the same things, he will always do the same attacks every single time. So you know exactly what is going to happen. So what most runners will do is you slash him once while the screen is still fading the boss in, which will already damage him. Then you want to parry all of his 6 lasers that he shoots at you, hit them back at him. Afterwards, you will do the same with the big orb he's trying to shoot at you, followed by another slash into his eye. And then comes the tricky part where he will shoot these 2, well, flaming enemies into the field. You want to hit the first one in the back, and then dash through the second one, and then you have to, well, basically sync them up by hitting them with your sword at certain intervals, so both of them will hit the tunnel cleaner at the same time, potentially killing the boss outright in less than 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, you basically clean the tunnel cleaner.
That's a good way to put
Sorry,
it, exactly.
I just had to do that.
But we are now on to chapter 7, the outskirts, and this is another, basically a run ender. Like, there is so many things that can just outright kill you. It's a very difficult chapter to get clean and to get through at all.
Knock knock.
Followed by these knock-knocks, as you can see on both our runners' screens right now. These big door-blocking enemies are called knock-knocks, and, well, they will definitely knock you into a pit the first time you fight them.
Yeah, the first one is definitely a bit more doable, but the second one has these moving platforms, and bless the heavens, there is a checkpoint right before that second knock. Because the moving platforms, it make it to a living hell. So the thing you're trying to do is, as soon as the platform is moving away, you're trying to hit the door, so it opens up, so the knock-knock comes out, and he tries to attack him. But you can swing your sword continuously as he just stretches his neck, and after that, it's deciding if he goes up or down, and basically determine your pattern from there. But we're at the point... Oh, sorry?
Yeah, but if you thought that those knock-knocks are bad, well, do I have news for you, because now we are in the Rustfly nest. Yes, those little critters are back, and they are just everywhere. Not only do you have to deal with a lot of flying enemies in this part of the run, you also have to deal with these poisonous bubbles. And if you let these big bubbles fester for a little while longer, they will pop out to be these skulls, as you shortly saw on 2C's side over there. And they will also try to home in on you, and they deal, I think, about 4 points of damage to you when they explode, which is a lot. They can basically two-shot you. And with all these flying enemies going on around you as well, that is one hell of an area to get through.
Yeah, if you do it quickly and you follow the script, you're basically going to get through it fine. If you make a single misstep, all hell is going to break loose. You will get charged by flying skulls, a lot of rust flies, and that's not your day to have a good time. But in the meantime, our runners have picked up an item, which is our favorite thing during the entire run. It's an SP dispenser, and it does exactly as its name implies. It dispenses SP, so you get more speed out of it, so you can dash more. And our runners are going to do what is called I don't actually know what it's called. I was gonna say it's called bringing the SP dispenser through Chapter 7 into the start of the end part of Chapter 8. So no, I'm explaining this wrong. Sorry. They're bringing this SP dispenser from Chapter 7, and they're going to try to bring it through as much of Chapter 8 as possible to get in more dashes and to do something what the SP dispenser isn't supposed to do, which is dispense money.
Exactly, because in Chapter 8 there is going to be an autoscroller section in which you actually are not controlling your main character for a short while. And since, this other quote-unquote character that we are controlling doesn't have any SP, the game doesn't know what to do with the SP dispenser. And instead of SP, it will give us essence, which is basically the currency which we'll use to buy other sub-weapons or health regenerations and stuff like that at the checkpoints. And from this point onward, we basically want to have an XP dispenser whenever we can. Because as we explained earlier, if you do not have any SP from this point going forward, you will not be able to dash, or at least dash as efficiently. And you will go slow. This is a speedrun. You don't want to go slow. You want SP, so you want to bring this SP dispenser for as long as you can.
But it's one tough cookie to crack, because once you start in Chapter 8, it's the part of the true end game. The game unlocks everything, throws everything at you. Every flying enemy it can think of, every turret or every spike it can place, it just does. Because we just had the magical wish-granting dragon that did not only free our master... No, we just wish that was it. But the dragon unlocks all our abilities, so we basically have a third layer on top of all our abilities. We can now charge our attacks, we get our double jump, we get a kunai, and we get a charge attack. And the charge attack is used to beat level 3 doors. And that's the start of Chapter 8. But
so
it's
just
not an easy ride.
SpaceNarc take a death there, and as soon as he respawns, he immediately bought another SP dispenser, which should tell you how important these things actually are. So even though he has nearly no essence left, he went for that buy. And oh god, 2C also taking another death here. So yes, Cyber Shadow starting to do Cyber Shadow things, I want to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to get out of the mental death loop the game sometimes puts you in if you want to go fast, because like we mentioned earlier, a single mistake, a single misstep can mess up entire cycles, enemy placements as soon as you enter a room. So even runners sometimes opt to, ooh, not just before the checkpoint 2C, no!
Oh, this is basically the screen where you really do not want to die, as there's just a checkpoint coming after that. And yeah, it's a really long run to get back there. Through one of the hardest sections of the game, nonetheless. And I think 2C just took a moment to collect himself again, getting the nerves down so you can.
I was wondering what he was
this.
thinking. It just might be calming down the nerves, because even that shocked me, and I was like, "Oh, that's so painful." As soon as you are in front of a checkpoint, it's yikes. I think he knows somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, not again, 2C, please. You got this. You got this.
I believe in you.
Breath. But yeah, let's continue on a bit. SpaceNarc is already at the point where we just discussed it, what an SP dispenser does. Mm-hmm. But in this auto-scroller section, it's dispensing money, and it pays for itself, basically, if you can bring it up to this point. But there's a second part where it also dispenses even more money, which is the second part of Exo 2, which changes your bike to a giant mech, which you can enter and then fire lasers from. But if you still keep your SP dispenser until then, it's still going to dispense money. Which is, of course, the little extra padding you can use for the end game. Instead of just buying a single SP dispenser at the end, you can just also get a refill and get through your fights faster. So it depends on how you're going to deal with your enemies and how you are going to plan it out. As you can see, SpaceNarc just carefully treading through this. Also not going for the damage boost door clip. He's not trusting the situation. He wants the extra money. He's going for it. He's blazing through it. And he's already up to the Exo Part 2 with the SP dispenser. which means he's going to get even more money.
That's basically a good play by SpaceNarc, you know, not trying to go for that door clip because he is in the lead by a very comfortable margin at the moment because, you know, 2C had those deaths just now, so he could definitely spare the time to go a little bit slower but safer in the long run. Also, you saw him just use a shuriken just before he hopped into the mech right there. And that is because if your SP is actually full when you go into the autoscroller or into the mech right there, the SP dispenser will actually basically do nothing. So not only will it not replenish your SP, it will also not generate essence for you. So you need to be, you know, not at maximum SP basically when you get into the mech or onto the bike.
Yeah, that's one of the tricky parts. Sometimes people tend to forget. Throw a bit of quick bit of shuriken, get rid of your SP, get your money in, and we're good to go. And with that, one of the few airplanes that, of course, has a feat, which is called attacking aggressively. The airplane is a mini-boss. You need to kill it. He spawns 3 times. We know where he spawns. You need to deal a certain amount of damage, and you need to be in a specific position to kill him. But as long as you deal enough damage, it takes him 3 times to go down. We fire a lot of lasers at him, and he's gone.
And not only should you rapid fire those lasers, if you just hold down the attack button, you can actually charge your attack, which also deals a ludicrous amount of damage, and that is how you can basically guarantee that you get the 3 cycle on the dropship there. Because between it, you know, being on the screen, leaving the screen, and coming back, there's way more than enough time to actually go ahead and charge your attack there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we have to say goodbye to the right side EXO as our good friend. Yeah, he tried to protect us, and he is going to do so, but unfortunately sacrifices his life for this reason. But we will avenge you, EXO! We will get revenge.
Also, one thing that you will start seeing here is that but what you just saw is that SpaceNarc basically could go for all the fast strategies in the last few screens because he still had his SP dispenser, which means that he could just dash basically anywhere. Whereas 2C does not have an SP dispenser anymore, and he also has very little SP. So you'll have to be a little bit more cautious with how he does his dashes, how he spends his SP to go forward still.
SpaceNarc, of course, already still having this full SP dispenser, opted to not take the hidden SP dispenser, which was above a laser enemy, entering what we call the death loop room, because this room is infamous for spawning a lot of enemies. If you try to not get hit. He just did it magnificently. I have no words for it.
That looked really solid, really clean, you know, not a lot of problem there. He is still has full health after going through that. He is just, you know, upping the ante tonight. Like, he is out for blood. Like, he's basically mercilessly running in front of 2C.
He's still keeping up the SP dispenser at this point. And I know commentators curse, but I think he has it in him to...
Oh. There we go.
My bad. Of course, as soon as I want to praise, like, it's quite hard to bring an SP dispenser up to this point. So you gotta give props to runners who can actually do this. But yeah, that death is fortunately a bit of a quick one, because the checkpoint is just below the room. You jump up there, you can dash through, and you can get back to that point quickly.
But you could definitely see the difference of him going through the room the first time with the XP dispenser and full SP bar, and the second time with basically no SP at all. You could see how much slower that just was. So, well, maybe he just wanted to show that off, you know.
Yeah, it's really quite nice of our runners to, you know, take care of our audience as well. I mean, it is a race after all.
I mean, to be fair, no matter how this race is gonna finish, I think everybody here has already got the, well, excitement that he or she wanted out of this race already, because this is just phenomenal skill on display here from both sides, even with the deaths and the small mistakes that they did here or there. But it's just really fun to watch.
I'm gonna say it now. It's not over until it's over, until the last switch has been hit.
That is also true. because we are now coming up at the end of chapter 8, so there are 3 more chapters that we still have to go through, and boy oh boy, let me tell you, those are not easy. Because the game, well, we said it a few times already, but it's just gonna get harder for both of them.
Yeah, chapter 9 is a bit of a shorter chapter, but it doesn't make it any more easy for you. You just try to get through this room with cycles as quick as possible. You slash a level 3 door, but you know, while it might be a short chapter, it's a dangerous chapter and it can throw things at you. And if you make a mistake here, the checkpoints are, of course, a bit more far between than the usual.
I mean, chapter 9 just basically prepares you for chapter 10, right? Because in both chapters 9 and 10, you will go at a long length in the air, chaining dashes to the right. However, in chapter 9, you still have the safety cushion of water underneath you, whereas in chapter 10, well, that water will just be spikes and bottomless pits. So, you know, better take your practice runs here.
Ooh, bottomless pits, my favorite.
And we are going to see a lot of those in the next chapter, but SpaceNarc is basically having none of it. He is just blitzing through this whole section. A little trouble there at the end, but he made it to the next checkpoint and is now on the boat. So he will be in another auto-scroller for a little while here while he has to defend his boat. So I guess we can make a bet if it's going to be a fast boat or a slow boat. Commentator's curse.
Just gonna say longboat, so if we get it, we're right. And if we're going to commentate curse it, best go for the slow one. So if we get the fast one, it's good.
Slow boat, slow boat, slow boat, slow boat. Everybody chant it. So basically what we mean by that is at the end of this boat ride that you can see SpaceNarc doing here, you can either get a long boat or a slow boat, however you want to call it, or basically a fast boat. And what that is for whatever reason, we don't know why, it can either take about 10 seconds for the next screen to pop up, or it can basically happen instantly. And you have no control of it. It's either or, and we always, of course, hope for the fast one, but slow boat, slow boat. Slow boat.
Yeah, there's a little new trick. Recently, you see SpaceNarc still using what we're used to, but as you dash through an enemy, you have a bit of a slowdown animation. And one of the tricks I see the top runners using currently is to not try to use those air dashes as much as possible, just to save a second or two off in this entire section, which I find formidable because I do not prefer the boat without my air dashes.
Yeah, for sure, me neither. I mean, yeah. Then again, I'm also not at the point where there's 1 or 2 second matters, so...
Yeah, there's different levels of how to approach the game at first. I would say general platforming would be the best to start, but chapter 10, it starts off with a boss.
And the boss is already gone.
Off with a boss. But we have learned that those rockets he fires, while the boss is of course very dead right now, can be parried. So those missiles deal like a heck ton of damage.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not only the missiles, is if the missiles hit either you or the ground, they will burst into these purple flames that also deal a shit ton of damage to you. So if you actually manage to parry those, they won't explode, they won't leave the fire, and you can actually use the projectile to hit back at Combinatron, making this fight go very, very fast. I mean, basically if you blink, he's dead.
Yeah, Combinatron is the 10-second fight where we did not expect to get to that point. But if you mess up the cycles, basically, if you try to kill him too fast, he will use his hands to heal himself. So at that point, you either need to kill his hands, or you reset and basically try to go for the quick kill again. It's either or in the runner's preference.
I think most runners will just opt to reset the fight at that point, because if you push Combinatron below half health or at half health, he will use his hands to heal, as Dankita just explained, and that just prolongs the fight by so much that most people would just go ahead, reset. The checkpoint is like right before the fight, he'll barely lose any time, and try again, and try to kill him before he can heal himself.
Yeah, SpaceNarc is currently waiting for.
Oh, God, that was close. Like you could barely see the healing animation going on at 2 seat sides over there. I think the first pulses of the heal were about to reach Combinatron's head, so that was a really close kill for him.
It's good thing that you saw that, because I was paying attention to SpaceNarc's side as he was displaying a different strategy. There's 2 things you can do. Basically, do at that door where we're forced to wait, which is you can either farm SP on those enemies, or you can parry those strikes, and with a charged parry, you can hit them at the enemy that is behind the door. But I'm glad 2C got through Commandantron as quick as he could.
Yeah,
because getting those heals off,
I think
nightmare
2C
material.
really has found his confidence again, because he is like going for all the risky strats in this chapter, as far as I can see, to try and make back some time here. And it's like really a treat to see on his side. Even though he's a little bit behind in the race, he is gaining ground, I want to say. So let's see if that will be enough, because SpaceNarc is now at the climb. It's basically the last section of the game before the gauntlet of the final bosses. And it's a long vertical shaft that you have to get on top. But yeah, that first section looked really clean.
Yeah, that first section is the most infamous one. You have those purple enemies flying around. You have cycle-based moving platforms. And the quickest strategy is to rely on those RNG flying demons to know when and where they're going to go. But if they just move a little bit more to the left or right, you will miss your timing and you will have to redo the room if you want to do it the way you're used to.
Now, Dankito taking effect of the safety cushion of essence that he built up during the auto-scrollers, where he had the SP dispenser with him, being able to both buy the SP dispenser and the SP refill before the final boss gauntlet here. He had a very quick apparator fight, and he is now on to the final 2 bosses of the game. So I think he is about to maybe hit a new record. What's his time here?
If he gets down Pro Gen 1 if he gets down Pro Gen 2 within the next minute, he is down to a new PB.
Well, that was a very quick progenitor fight.
But yeah, the final boss basically has these giant orbs attached to, of course, the section you want to hit. And they contain the elementals, and they are there to help us. They give us a shield, they give us extra firepower, and they give us platforms. But as you can see, we're keeping one of the elementals stuck in one of those orbs. Unironically, it's the platform elemental that we use as a platform to deal damage to the final boss. So that's the thing.
Yeah, because you can't just use your airstrike to basically pogo off of those orbs to try and hit Progenitor up there in the middle, like a little bit more easy, and you don't need those platforms at all.
Yeah, you just basically abuse. Even if you break the orb on the right, you can still have those flying knives that Progenitor throws down, flying spears. I don't really know what they're at, but you can pogo off those, use a double jump, and then still use the pogo to hit Progenitor at the top as soon as he's moving upwards.
Yeah, PGs for SpaceNarc, as he has now killed the final boss. However, his run is not yet over.
Don't say it. I refuse to use such a swear in this stream.
Yeah, I mean, with the commentator's curse going around tonight, maybe it's better if we don't say anything about it. That's true.
Well, as long as they do not have any SP, there's no fear for it, but SpaceNarc still has SP. And as our runners are very aware, they will pay attention to the final part of the game to make sure they they are not going to make the last mistake that is possible. I explained it without saying it. Ha!
But yeah, while SpaceNarc is doing his round of honor there, getting into the end, Juicy is also up to the final boss here. And I think he's taking a little bit of a safer route. Maybe not. I think I didn't catch enough of that. And that is GG's for SpaceNarc.
That's a sub 58 in a race, which is really impressive. It's still not. It's like 30 seconds above his current PB. I think his
The leaderboard
PB is still
says his
pending.
PB is a 58.29. But I think I have seen people in chat say that he already has a faster time, which might not be on the leaderboards yet.
I think.
But
it's
yeah, also 3Gs
57.49.
for 2C, who has also killed the final boss now. And is on his descent to the end. But yeah, that was a very clean run by SpaceNarc. That win was definitely deserved.
That was a very, very quick run. If you can at least be even close to your PB, it just means you're super fast. Sub-hour in this game is a barrier that not many of us have broken yet. There's literally only a handful of people who are still capable of getting sub-hour in this game.
Not only that, it was also during a race. You know, you also have to take into account like just the mental stress that gets put on you if you are, you know, matched against somebody else who not only also speedruns this game, but just, you know, taking a look at the leaderboard is quote unquote better than you. So, you know, SpaceNarc being able to overcome both of those things is just really phenomenal.
I like how 2C just used the swag pogo there just to hit the switch.
Yeah, he's definitely taking the time to goof it around a little bit.
And with that,
and GG's for 2C.
Something happened. I couldn't hear exactly what. But good evening, SpaceNarc. How are you feeling about now?
I'm a bit shaky.
I can imagine. You were just like 30 seconds ahead of 30 seconds later than your current PB, if I'm correct. Which is like a 57.49 out of the top of my head. I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 57.39.
Then you've put down one hell of a race.
Yeah, it went pretty well. There were some rocky patches though, for sure.
So, anything you would like to say how your run went?
Oh, I was doing. Felt like I was doing really good up till Mecha Dragon, but I'm cursed. I can't get less than 4 cycles in a race, so I got what I figured I'd get. And then, oh, go ahead.
That part was really intense during the race because 2C actually got a faster Mecha Dragon at that point, and both of you, basically in the earlier chapters, were just switching left and right, and we had no idea who was going to end up on top eventually.
Good to hear. I like it when races go back and forth.
Yeah, I think the first 3 or 4 chapters, you guys were like, you know, basically at the same position in the game. It was like crazy to see.
Nice. I figured I'd fall way behind once I lost my shield and couldn't get the skips, and then the death I took didn't help.
Yeah,
So,
both of you actually unfortunately missed it. I knew you were going for a bit of a safer strat, but yeah, then those sometimes you just get hit multiple times, and it feels really awful.
Yeah, it sure does. From then on, it was basically like I had a few like kind of stupid deaths, but at least they weren't like incredibly punishing. They were pretty short, but they're deaths I really shouldn't be taking.
Yeah, I had the commentator's curse on you. You were on chapter 8. You were almost about to pull the SP dispenser to chapter 9. And I was like, this is really impressive. And then you died.
Then I took the backup, carried that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any kind of like strategy going into this race? You know, knowing that we're going up against somebody who is, you know, a little bit faster on the leaderboards. Like, did that change anything for you going into the race?
It didn't change too much from how I have been doing my races in the tournament. I've been basically just treating them like PB attempts. I know the guys I'm up against. I think my last couple races anyway, they've been against people with PBs that are ahead of mine. So I'm treating it like a PB attempt and just trying not to play it safe at all. Just go as hard as I need to.
I mean, that is pretty risky, no? I mean, it's awesome to see, and it definitely paid off here, but holy crap. Not pulling any punches there, that is something, wow. Hats off to you.
Yeah, it's worked out so far.
I think it's an interesting approach. Maybe I should try that next time. See if that works, calms the nerves a bit.
I can tell you it doesn't calm the nerves. I was shaking for most of the race.
Well, yeah, I mean, we will definitely see more of you still after this race, as you will, you know, go up against another opponent very soon. So, is there anything that you were going to do before that race? Like, will you just kick back and just wait until the day comes around when the races happen, or will you just go ahead and train like crazy or something?
There's a couple things I want to practice. Like I want to be able to get the quick kill on spider rail down. That's still something that I haven't been able to get consistently. So I usually just in a run, I'll just go to do it like I normally would instead of trying for the quick kill. So that's one thing. I'd like to get my consistency with Mecha Dragon better. But there isn't too much. Maybe practice the final boss too. Get that a bit quicker. Yeah, there's a couple things.
It seems like a solid plan. So your opponent up next is either going to be Mini Subrango, the DJ, or Kyle Berry Sr., which are of course still undetermined, but congratulations for beating 2C and moving on in the lower brackets.
Thank you.
Do you have any, does anybody have any last words they want to say?
Say GG 2C. Yeah, I imagine it was a really nice race. I'm gonna have fun watching the replay. I think if it's as close as you guys said it was, I'm gonna like seeing that. And thank you to Strizer for putting on this tournament. It's been really fun.